Hello, everyone. This is Doc English, and today we're going to address 5 common English mistakes that Thai speakers often make. I hear Thai speakers make these mistakes all the time, and these are phrases you'll need to use at some point if you're going to speak English. So it's very important that you say them correctly. Let's dive in and make sure you avoid being judged or misunderstood. First up, we've got the phrase, where you go. I hear this all the time. Mister, where you go? Now, this mistake happens because Thai doesn't use auxiliary verbs like are in English to form questions. What speakers are doing is they're translating Thai directly into English, but that often doesn't work, especially when the languages are very, very different. Now, in order to fix this, you need to use the auxiliary verb are and also the present continuous tense. The correct way to say this is, where are you going? Sir, where are you going? The next mistake I constantly hear stems from the same problem. No auxiliary verb and not put in the present continuous tense. What I hear is, Mister, what time you come? Teacher, what time you come to class? Now, the same rule applies here. You need to use the continuous tense, which adds an ing to the verb. Instead of go, it's now going. Or instead of come, it's now coming. And you also need to add that auxiliary verb. The correct way to make this phrase would be, when are you coming? Or what time are you coming? Number 3 is also quite common. Mister, where you come from? Now, this mistake happens because Thais are translating Thai directly into English, which, like I said before, hardly works correctly. Similar to the first mistake, Thai often omits auxiliary verbs and questions because the sentence structure is different. Now, this do and does business, it's strange. It doesn't exist in most languages. Don't try to understand it. Just trust me. Use do or does. You'll sound a lot better. For questions asking about someone's origin back or background in the present simple tense, you need the auxiliary verb are. Now, the most common way native speakers will say this is, where are you from? Sir, where are you from? Teacher, where are you from? Now, you can also say, where do you come from? But either way, you need an auxiliary verb. Either you need the verb to be, in which case it's are, or you need the phrase do, in where do you come from? Either would work, but native speakers will generally say, where are you from? Number 4 is another common issue. How much cost? This is not how it's said in English, and the same problem applies here. You need the auxiliary. You need to either use the verb to be or do or does. In Thai, questions about price or amount might be formed without an auxiliary verb. English requires use of does for questions in the simple present tense, especially when asking about the cost or price of something. How much is this? Would work if you want to use the verb be. Or how much does it cost? Would work if you prefer to use do or does. The final mistake is just this. Number 5, why don't you like? Mister, why don't you like? This mistake happens again because Thais are omitting the auxiliary verbs in questions. Thai uses a different structure for asking these questions. In English, to form questions in the present simple tense with negation, that means to make the sentence negative. You need the auxiliary verb do or does for third person singular. So the correct way to ask this question is, why don't you like it? You have to add it. Or if you're talking about something specific, you can say, why don't you like the sunglasses? Say the specific thing that you're speaking about. Okay, that does it for today's lesson. Those are 5 common mistakes that I hear Thai speakers make. And those are very common phrases that you're going to want to say correctly. Now, if you say them in the way I described earlier, if you translate directly from Thai to English, people will often understand what you're saying and they're very hardly going to correct you. But if you start to use the correct formations, people are going to think you're a lot stronger and they're going to be a lot more willing to communicate with you going forward, especially in professional settings. That does it for today's lesson. I hope you had fun, and I'll see you next time.